Welcome to the weekly open mic. I am a little discombobulated. I am coming back from Enable's conference in Berlin. I got back late last night. There were about 500 folks there. It was a really good conference, good group of folks. For the folks that are new on this call, new to Roost, this is a highly technical call for folks who are automating things. If you're an owner or an operator, you're not required to know everything that folks are saying on this call, unless you want to build, and then you can learn. Also, you can take away automation ideas as well, because that's one of the reasons why we do this call. We do this call because MSPs asked to see what was new on the platform, what bugs we fixed, and you wanted to do some R&D or rob and duplicate of what other MSPs are working on in regards to automation. If you're interacting with us in Discord in your private channel, make sure you either tag us or respond in a thread, because we're monitoring hundreds of channels all at once. If you're not posting in your Discord and your private channel, I am going to tell you about a little lesson learned I have had around MSPs that succeed in automation and MSPs that don't. Let me see, how many? 2, 4, 12, 20. I know 0 MSPs that have succeeded with automation that have never asked a question. So if you've never asked a question in the coop or in your private channel, you may not get to be as successful as you want to be. So ask questions early, ask often. We've got a conference coming up. We've got Flow. Can someone post Flow link? Flow is a industry vendor neutral automation conference for MSPs. We are totally going to sell out. And when we sell out, I won't be able to get more folks in because the hotel gets mad at us. And if we ever want to use them again, I got to kind of follow some of the rules. So please, if you're really thinking of attending, don't wait till last week because it may not happen for you. So go ahead and get your Flow tickets. We're going to have some more announcements around keynotes and other items coming up soon, which will be pretty cool and fun. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Ashe. Ashe, what's up?
Hi, everyone. Welcome. One thing that I do want to say is I'm not sure if everybody else, what they're doing next week, if you guys have the week off, but we are most likely not going to be having an open mic next week in Canada and in the UK and in Australia. It is a stat holiday on Friday. And I do believe that there's a bunch of places in the US where it's a holiday as well. So stay tuned for a revamped, exciting show the following week. Nope, I had no other announcements. Okay, so now we are going to jump over right away to Daniel with an A for the dev and product updates.
Hey, everybody. So we had another release yesterday with some exciting new updates, as well as some cool stuff that's going to be coming soon. A lot of our updates today were related to integrations, quote unquote, on a couple of the integrations. Our transforms integration and Roost integration received some new actions. Dan Hayes has struck again and has been working on the refang and defang transforms. It's probably been a couple of months now that we demoed refang and defang. This helps a lot with like malicious email response. Lets you make URLs safer, so you're not accidentally clicking these URLs. I'll show that in a couple seconds. We also we made a couple of improvements to PAX8 pagination. For our Roost integration, we added some app builder functionality in there. So this you can list apps, list pages, list page components, and update text component content. This is meaningful because it will help you make your apps more dynamic. You can make changes to those apps just by an automation instead of having to necessarily use like Jinja templating within your within either templates or directly in App Builder. We've also corrected the Halo PSA naming, removed that little space, a really small fix. We have some bug fixes and chores that went out as well this week. And then coming soon, we'll be able to demo a few new integrations as well as some beta functionality that we're currently working with some wonderful beta testers to get out the door. So we have generic GraphQL action. This allows you to interact with the ArtGraph API to get access to some Roost data that you can get through the UI, but maybe not through a workflow. We have some improved search functionality on the workflow page that's being worked on. We just have some minor changes to the UI for that left. We have a dashboard widget that's still being worked on. Again, some UI changes. We have the PowerShell interpreter that I think we have over at least 50, maybe close to 100 beta testers on this right now with some amazing responses and amazing feedback. There's probably still a little bit of work to do before we want to get to full general availability. But overall, PowerShell use is high and it's working very well. And we have 4 new integrations that are coming soon. We have Asana, Cork, Notion, and Slide. Some of these are newer products, and some of these are highly requested products or integrations through Canny. So just to show you that, yeah, Canny and what you ask for through Canny does matter. So I'll quickly jump into a workflow here. So you can see here that we have the defang. So all I've done is I've added a URL in there, roost.io/aprilfools.surprise, and then the refang, which is the same URL. It's pretty much the output of the defang. So I'm gonna take that and turn it back into a regular URL. And then I have the list apps, list pages, list page elements. They take, so list pages just takes a name of an app, and then list page elements takes the page ID of an app. So if I just go to the execution history here and I look at this, then you'll be able to see the result of that is a defanged URL here. We also have a, gotcha, Alden. There's nothing, it's a 404. And then the refanged URL here. You can see when you list the pages of a given app, it will give you some information on each one of those pages. It will also allow you to get all the nodes and get some information on what the styles and all the nodes of a given page look like. So this is part of ongoing functionality improvements, very iterative process for us to get App Builder into the hands of more of our customers and to improve the dynamic nature of the apps that you build. But yeah, with that, unless there are questions, I think that's it. So back to you, Ashley.
Thank you. All right. So I don't think that I saw any specific questions for you there. So now let's jump over to JP with our marketplace update.
Hello, everyone. Right. For the marketplace update, we released a new crate that it's alert on privilege role account creation. I'll go over that here in a minute. We had a number of bug fixes that we implemented, and for next week, we are coming soon, disk-based monitoring, alerting, and an orchart builder crate, which I'm particularly excited to see. So looking at the alert on privilege role account creation, basically what this does is it's going to, it runs as a cron job, and it looks at a configurable period of time. And you can also configure the roles associated with this crate, but it looks for new user accounts with specific roles created. The intent being like privileged roles, just to show kind of what it would look like. I created a new user with an administrative role, and then in the PSA, once I ran the workflow, it generated an alert that had content like this. So it tells you the name of the account, UPN, the role associated with the created account, and when it was created. So hopefully folks will be interested in that and try it out. Interested to hear feedback on crates as always. And that's the marketplace update for today.
Thank you, Jareth. Cody asked, will it monitor existing users granted a privileged role?
No, this one is specifically for like new user creation. I made that for a customer, so it's 100% doable in Roost. The way I did it was I stored the lists of the OUs or whatever. I did it for both on-prem and M365, and it would look at it basically store the contents of those privileged groups, and then when it reran, it would compare the new list and old list. So that's generally speaking how it would work, or how I did it. But it's 100% doable in Roost. But yeah, this one is specifically targeted towards new user creation.
Thank you. Okay, now we will jump over to Brandon. Education time, Cluck Universe.
Right. Cluck Universe, let's go. Hey, everybody. Happy Friday. Let me share my screen here. All right. So before we dive into all of that good stuff, my game tip of the week this week is that if you don't want to spend, like $400 getting these old Lunar games, which are some classic RPGs that are amazing, then there is a remake coming out next week, I believe on the 18th. That's going to be really awesome. Very excited about it. So go check that one out. All right. Now to the good stuff. Shout outs to Alexander, Leo, Brian, Christopher, Jarek, John, Breyer, Emil, Stuart, Derek, Tom, Alex, Ken, Bailey, and Cody, and our very own Jeff for passing the Foundations certification exam. You guys will get your prestigious certified rooster badge in Discord and access to our not so super secret Discord channel where you can chat with other folks who have passed and brainstorm what you're going to do next. Also, shout outs to Doa, Florian, Ruth Ann, Sim, Ken, Bobby, Matthew, Patrick, and Fred for passing the clean automation certification. I say this every week. I'm going to say it again. If you are new or you've been here for a while and you haven't checked out the clean automation content or got that certification, I would highly encourage you to do so. We hear time and time again that those who take the clean automation certification wish they would have gotten to that content much earlier. So definitely check that one out. Otherwise, just as a reminder, you can join us in our Discord channel, CluckU, for any questions you may have about the content or as you're building. We have an awesome, thriving community that can help as you are looking to automate whatever it is you're going to tackle next. We also have our office hours to sign up for with the legendary Eddie Chow. So if you're going through the content, if you have any questions, you can jump in there and hang out with Eddie and get some help. All right. Otherwise, we'll go through our quick updates here. So for CluckU, we have updated this to a new system. Learn.roost.io is where you can go now to get our Cluck University. I almost said Cluck Universe. Cluck University content. And it is no longer available in Roost.help. So you can see that here. We've basically updated all of the links to direct to learn.roost.io. And of course, in the actual product itself, you will see on the dashboard a way to get there, but it's always in that resources center, which is that little question mark at the bottom right of the platform. So go check that out. Otherwise, just as a reminder, the live training registration is also up to date in our new system. and you could sign up for Automation Basics Roost Foundation's certificate or a clean automation and CluckU office hours with the legendary Eddie Chow. So go check those out. You can register through the end of May, and some of those June sessions will be coming soon. Some other updates, we have synced Foundation and Clean Automation certifications. So if you've been certified, that will now show up in our new LMS system. We're continuing to do some work there as well, so we'll keep you guys updated. We've also made some improvements to both the live training registration experience as well as the login experience. So now if you are directed to a course or a page in the LMS and then you sign up, you will land right back where you started, whereas before you were landing on the home page. So we've got that taken care of. So more updates to come on our CluckU learn.roost.io site. As far as documentation, we have a number of updates here as well. So the enable and central integration includes some new actions. Documentation on how to test completion handlers has been added. We've removed duplicates from the list transform actions. The compare dates transform actions has been added as well. And we've added Quark and Asana integration pages, as well as alert on expiring app certificates crate and an alert on expiring app secrets crate. So check those out, and we will have more to come in the coming days. That's it for me. Back to you, Ash.
Thank you, Brennan. Can you let Benjamin know in chat where he can go for signing up to take the certs?
Absolutely.
And that will be great. Now we will jump over to our demos. Last week, if you were on, you probably remember that I promised Derek that he could go first. So he's back, he's here, he's ready to go first with a pretty interesting workflow.
Thanks, Ash, for making me sound like a spoiled little child there. I appreciate that.
Oh.
So obviously the PowerShell beta went out last week. Everybody is super eager to see how it looks, how it runs. And I wanted to really get into that. I have an interesting use case for it that I think is relevant to a lot of us, in that I use the Screen Connect API module in PowerShell to build out local users that we give out to some of our clients that request it. How it was happening is we had a server that I just built a template on in PowerShell. We sent it over, it built it, and went from there. When we announced the PowerShell beta, I immediately was like, there's no reason we can't do all of this in the PowerShell and build it straight through Roost. So that's what I've done. There is a caveat here that it is not working, and I think it has something to do with the output that we're getting back from the Azure function. So we are working on that. It is working as far as creating the new user, but then getting that user information back, for some reason it's not. So we'll kind of start at the top. We have some of my server information, some of the credentials in an org variable there. It is important to know that I don't know if this will be true when it goes live, but at the moment we can't reference org variables through PowerShell. So that much is still Jinja. But everything else that I've done, most everything else that I've done is in PowerShell. And guys, I mean, it's super easy to use. It's really cool. I have zero experience with Azure Function apps before this, and I've spent maybe 5 or 6 hours, and I've edited the profile PS1 doc, re-uploaded it, got everything working, helped troubleshoot some stuff. So it is really kind of easy. But yeah, so we just build our username. We take the first name and the last name, build it out. From here, we kind of do the same with display. We pull the first name and last name together for the display name. We're actually going to edit that a little bit later as well. Here we get what type of ticket we're working with, whether it's a project or a service ticket. And depending on what happens there, we move down. And this is kind of, here we're generating a password. And here's where we kind of get into the nitty gritty. We're just building a new user. The prep right here, we're getting our screen credentials all set up. And this would be the first command that we're actually sending into the imported module. So it's pretty cool. One thing that I don't like is I do have to connect to the ConnectWise server every time. Seems that session doesn't stay open long enough to not have to connect for every different command. The other thing that's really tricky about taking a script and then building it out is you kind of have to know what inputs you or what outputs you want to use later. So I take this MFA output and I'm going to use it a couple times later. So I can't just have one enormous script block that does everything, because then I'm not going to have access to this MFA, at least that I've found. If I'm wrong, somebody shoot me a message. From here, we take the display name and we just kind of pretty it up. We add a company designator in front of it. And then we're creating the user block. I don't know if anybody's ever used this module, but it takes a, what is that, a hashable table. So that was kind of interesting to see if PowerShell through this integration would accept that yet as a splatter, and it does, thankfully. But once again, yeah, we're just kind of building what we need in the user, and then we're passing it into this table. And this is the problem area at the moment. This is where we're actually creating the new user. So let's see. Once again, we are gathering our variables. That needs to be deleted, but that's all right. This was from a test that I was doing earlier where I was trying to combine the couple commands. That doesn't really matter though. But here's the actual command that we're using to create the new user. I have it kind of worked around because, as I said, we're not getting the output I need back. So I have everything that was how it was commented out. And we can kind of see, I hope, what my logic was here, where we're trying the new user block in a try catch, and we want to return, to call the new roost object as a return object and pass through either in this case, the success information, or if it errors out, we want to try and capture that that error message and kind of go from there. And that way, later on, we can filter what we want as far as if there's an error that we know how to fix, user already exists, or if there's one that we don't know. This is not working. Every time I run it, I get a simple error out on it, and there's just really not a lot.
That's likely a timeout error. We're doing some internal work to improve the errors around that and kind of adjust the timeouts for the Azure function app call. That's likely what you're seeing there.
That's not the error. Hang on. This is the error right here. That's the only output I get.
Yeah, that's more what I'm saying. It seems like the
same thing
isn't being propagated correctly to the UI.
Okay.
And that's maybe what you're seeing.
Okay, cool. Then hopefully once that gets fixed, then all this will work great.
We're gonna get kind of techie here real quick though. So Pizza, you think it's a timeout? Then could Derek run it locally to see if it takes any length of time to return, to see if it really is a timeout issue?
So I have done that. I have this built out locally, and it only takes about 5 seconds to run. It doesn't
The
take
timer
very
is
long.
around, I believe, 5 to 10 seconds. It just depends. I'd have to double check that, but we're looking into increasing that because we saw some issues with beta testers running into some problems when the Azure function spun up for the first time in ever.
Okay.
That kind of
So-
also explains the other one that gets caught a lot for that same error that you said is the timeout. This one is the get MFA method here, which is the first one that really calls that and imports it and connects to the server. So yeah, that would explain all of that. So at the moment, that's where we fail. We actually create the new user, but we don't get any notifications. We don't get anything like that. I've got a new user for Aaron here set up, so we can see if it's going to work with us, and I can kind of show you how it looks in real time. One thing I will say is it does.
Asked you why you use PowerShell to do this instead of Jinja, and I think you said you just were more comfortable with PowerShell, or?
So I'm 100% more comfortable with PowerShell. Also, in being part of the beta group, I wanted to use and abuse and break as much as I can because I know that helps in the long run. So this was kind of the thing that I knew that I could use PowerShell, in place of the regular Jinja commands, and I also knew there was a special use case of having an imported module and using the imported module, and I just wanted to see how all of that worked and what we can do to make it better. And I will say it does help to be familiar with PowerShell, but it's more like a PowerShell monster, like a Frankenstein almost, because it is different. There is a lot of things that you have to do that's a little bit different, and analyzing the data and everything else. Now, when you're just using it in place of Jinja, it's a lot easier. But if you want to get into any of the scripting and the bigger like imported modules and messing with it that way, it's a lot different. So yeah, as we can see, it definitely just failed out again at the new user creation. Let me refresh my user table here, and we will see. Yes. But we still created the user here. We have all the information. The password obviously is set in Roost, so we don't know what it is. We do get that as an output when the notifications work. And for some reason, the forced password change at next login is checked. It just doesn't like to show that it is. But yeah, that's my PowerShell demo. It's a really awesome utility and will make things a lot easier if you don't know Jinja coming into Roost.
That was super fun to watch. Thank you. I loved seeing that. It's like my brain wasn't computing how I was like, but this is Roost. That was cool. I loved it.
Right. The other thing I will say that's a little bit weird, and I don't know if we can address it, is if it seems like if the PowerShell in the transition fails, you have to have another no-op to analyze that to see if it failed. But there's also very little, because we don't get a whole lot of the transition information back. So it's hard to test that or look at that in the execution summary.
And if you want to make a note of that, for sure, we can kind of obviously that's the feedback we're looking for exactly. Right. So you know, first of all, thank you for breaking it, but also you know, we're taking steps to make utilizing it a lot closer to what you would expect from Jinja. Things like multi-output, things like that are something that are on that list, and as we get feedback from beta testers and improve the package that goes out to the Azure function, you know, everybody will benefit from those kinds of things. So first of all, thank you for the beta. You know, that's we love people who break things and tell us about it.
Yep.
Thank you. Yes, and so if you guys have been paying attention over the past few weeks, we've been building up. We started with some really basic stuff, and then we talked about iteration and progress and how you can scale through that. And so today we're kind of like exploring potential and innovation here. So that's kind of fun. Thank you very much. We are now going to jump over to Hunter. Hunter, this is a special workflow for you, right?
Yes. So I built a workflow that will help us with the conditional access policies in Azure. We use conditional access policies to block users from outside of the US from logging in. And then when a user travels, we have to go in and exclude them from that policy, set up a new policy, you know, with their only the trusted countries and the travel countries listed. So I've set up a workflow that will, it's quite large, but I have a form set up where you can select the user, and you can select any number of countries here, and it'll work. And then you just select the one to exclude them from, your ticket number, and then your dates of travel, start and end. So I have some variable creation here just for different stuff that I'm using later in the workflow. And then I check if the travel date is set for later than tomorrow. And if it is the travel start date, rather, I delay the workflow until the travel start date so that there's not just an open conditional access policy for them logging in from outside the US before they need it. And then we'll go down here after delaying the workflow. If it's not on a couple of specific boards, it exits just because I use some actions later in the workflow to log ticket time as the user, which it can't do if it's on the wrong board. So let's see. So this is just updating the ticket. This is pulling the user information for the selected user so that I can use that later on in ticket updates. I'm pulling the list of countries from ITglue because it actually has all the countries with their names and ISO codes listed, and then breaking that out into two different variables, just the countries for travel and then the countries for travel ISO, so I can select those later. So I then use a graph to list all the current named countries or named locations, and then I have some more fun data aliases here for listing the current countries. I only want to list countries that have one specific country and region selected. That way it's not selecting, or it's not listing, like let's say someone has put in Canada as the name location and selected a bunch of different countries. I don't want that. So it'll go through and look at all the countries and then compare the ISOs to see if there's any that need to be added. Skip over here to this no op, which then if there's not 0, it'll go over here to add the country. It'll add the country, update the ticket, and then I actually had to add a delay of a couple minutes because it adds the country and then transitions to the next step too fast to build the conditional access policy, which was causing it to error out. And then I combine all the countries into one list because I found it's the easiest just to combine it all into one list rather than later trying to combine it all and have it look correct for the Graph API request. So I create the conditional access policy for travel here with ticket number plus, the user's display name, the travel start, and I've only selected the from 5 to 10 just to get the dates instead of the year. And then here's all the variables and fun stuff that it's set up to set. Let's just make sure that the conditional access policy exclusion, there's one selected, and then it excludes the user from that conditional access policy. This first action here is just to get the conditional access policy. If you don't get the conditional access policy and save the currently excluded users, and you just try to add an exclude user to a conditional access policy, it'll erase the existing excluded users and have only yours that you've added. Then it'll go here and you can see the exclude users, which is this variable. And that's the AD user plus the users from the current policy. Then we have it go down here to this transition, which goes to either side depending on which board it's on, just to document the time of the ticket. After that, it'll transition down to here. And if the travel is over 30 days, it will document in the ticket saying, it's beyond the delay that we can have in roost or something like that, because it can only hold for 30 days in roost. And then it'll exit the workflow. If it's not more than 30 days, it'll transition over here to delay the workflow until the day after travel at 8 a.m. and then it'll kick off the removal workflow to remove the conditional access policy and remove the exclusion from the main policy. And that's pretty much it.
You mentioned you were pretty proud of this one. You had a lot of work that went into building it. Can you talk a little bit about that process?
Yeah, it took a while to figure out some of the API calls for Graph for like I had mentioned, the excluding users from the conditional access policy. That one was fun, especially figuring out that it removes all the existing exclusions. But yeah, it took like 10 to 15 hours, I think, for everything in the workflow. But it should save us a lot of time and save us from having any errors on those conditional access policies in the future.
Awesome. It looks like a lot of people are saying that they're actually building this exact same thing right now. Somebody said, good help knowing that to put in some delays. What are some of the gotchas that you experienced?
One of them was like the excluded users. Another one was the locations for the creating conditional access policy. It has to be in a specific format with them in quotation marks and a comma between them all. So if you combine all of the locations into one list, and then you can break that out with this code right here, and I can put that in chat if y'all want. But it'll replace the brackets around each one of the values and replace the single quotation mark with a double quotation mark.
That's really awesome. All right. Is there any questions for Hunter here? No, just a lot of fans. All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah, happy to present. If anyone has any questions or anything, let me know.
Cool. Stuart, Hunter, can I have a copy? You should do like a walkthrough sometime. Like, here's how I built it. All right.
That would take a while.
Clea, you are up with your. This is one of our April Fool's submissions, right?
Yeah, it is. All right. Let me move this Teams part out of the way. So it is a very simple workflow. It is based on the Hello World workflow, which you can find in Cluck University. Hop over to the search courses, type in hello, and learn how to do it in 9 minutes. It took me about 15 minutes to build the workflow and 45 minutes to debug it. Eddie will laugh because, well, Jinja typos. Once I got things working, though, I did a few more tweaks just to format the email nicely. So we'll actually go ahead and do a live demo today, and I'll share the final story in the chat here. But all it really is an email action that is using a bit of Jinja and Markdown to create a Mad Lib style story that it emails to you or to the person filling out the form. So someone in the chat, please give me an adjective that is appropriate for typing on the screen and maybe sharing in a recording. Carrie, all right. Give me a baking ingredient.
Tar.
Coconut. I'm going to go with coconut, maybe tar for the next one. Give me a roost feature. Folders, maybe one day. I'll go with it. Give me a roost employee who rocks.
Not Aaron.
Brandon. All right. Verb, appropriate again. Run. Awesome. Another roost employee. I'll put not Aaron in here. Another adjective, please. Great. Love it. And we'll go ahead and go with tar for the other baking ingredient. One final verb, colluding. Oh, I like it. An error message that you might get in Roost.
Unauthorized.
I like it.
Failed to initialize.
A third adjective. Hit. All right. A noun, any kind of noun.
That's a verb.
Yeah, I guess true. Adjective. I'm going to put musical. So it's like a hit song. Our noun will be Stuart, our friendly mascot. And one more verb. Fall. All right, here is our story generating in the background. And let's see it come through. Go ahead and read it out loud. You survived Cluck University, barely. You just woke up from the most hairy dream about the new Cluck University. It felt so real, you could still smell the coconut in the air. You were late for your exam on folders and panic set in. Professor Brandon would be so disappointed in you. They've always said a missed test is just a missed opportunity for more Jinja. But somehow you managed to run your way out of trouble and convinced your professor to let you take the exam anyway. You remember the tips your fellow student, not Aaron, shared in your last folder's study group. Always make your context variable names as pretty as possible. It's the best practice. Test your workflow at each step and sprinkle a pinch of tar over your shoulder for good luck. And never, ever write Jinja while colluding. It'll end badly, like unauthorized bad. In the end, your musical Roost knowledge pulled you through. You aced the exam and earned your official Cluck University certificate in Stewart Engineering. Honorary, of course. P.S. The professor now wants you to TA the next course. Good luck, you're gonna fall it. Thank you for creating this dream and enjoy.
That was fun. Yeah, will you share that with anybody who wants to build their own?
Yeah, happy to. I'll share it in the CluckU Discord.
Perfect. I think, Reed, we've got time for you now if you want to Aharon?
Sure. This isn't much. It was really just, well, I mean, it's kind of actually turning into something I think I'm going to wind up using, which I guess is the best kind of play. Let me find the right screen. So I wanted to do something to test the PowerShell. And so I thought, okay, rather than just do something I could easily do in Jinja, what is something that has always bugged me or been a sticking point or problematic? And I thought, yeah, it's when I need to do like manipulating lists, but I want to interact with the underlying list schema, or I've got kind of complex data matching rules that I want to apply. And it's not just a simple like map this to matching values. So I just put together a simple thing to give me two lists. So just a trivial or naive use of the Ninja get devices, which I just published a device list. Same thing with users, just get the users, and you can't use the publish as because you want to get the data values. So now I've got my two lists. I can, so what I want to do is go through every device and match it to a user. And the difficulties come in because depending on where the device was set up, the same user might have a login name that is, you know, their first initial last name on their domain joined computer, but it's their full first name, last name with a space on their Azure joined laptop. You know, at least as far as Ninja sees a last logged on user value. So I want to be able to manipulate that. So I'm going to go through, well, first I'm going to create a dictionary that's just going to have the individual user string and then a collection of the computer objects, the devices. I can then just have, in what I'm familiar with PowerShell, very quickly, you know, use my string functions to, you know, does it have the backslash? If it does, that's a domain. Go ahead and strip out the domain. Does it have an @ sign? If so, that's a domain with cloud version. Strip that out and get me down to just a username. Does the username have a space in it? If so, that's a first name, last name. I can get rid of that space and then put the whole thing in lowercase. So now I kind of have a normalized username that I will add to my dictionary and then, you know, create a new list of objects. And then just anytime I run across that normalized name, I'm going to add that device to the dictionary and then kick that back to Roost. So that we just test one, works great, other than the little colorizing issue there on the backslash. So now the next thing is, okay, now that we've got this normalized username, who is that? So now we got to match that to a user in our graph user list. But of course, again, we don't really know. It could be first name, last name. There's lots of things it could be. So we're going to go through our collection of found objects. And like, here's where I want to interact with that schema, right? So the thing that was generated was a object that's got a username property whose value is the array of data. I should actually just look at that quick. So the device user list in that first bit generated these normalized usernames that then just point to an array of their devices. So if we're going to read through that collection, we want to know, like, for each username property. So we can just expand that out and get those properties. and then go through our user list and start doing the individual logic to say, okay, what, and now some of this actually overlaps, right? Like I don't actually need this split out into two separate things. It's just this grew as I was playing with the PowerShell. So anyway, eventually I'll combine that all together when I make a real tool out of it. But anyway, we can, use our PowerShell. We can execute all these nice little different comparisons. And, when we find the one we need, we can add that to our list and then jump out of our loop and continue on with the next item. And then in the end, just dump out that final list. So we wind up with an array of objects where each object has our normalized name, the actual user principal name, and then the associated devices. So just, nothing too fancy, but doing this kind of manipulation and logic was just so much easier for my brain in PowerShell, where I literally had tried to do this in the past with the Jinja and the list comprehension, and just it never did quite get it to all work the way I wanted, and just wound up not having time and moving on to something else. And so now I can go back to a low priority project and knock it out pretty quick because I can just rely on what I already know how to do. So
you just explained why we're so excited about the PowerShell stuff, Reed. People don't have to learn it. They already know it. And that's why we're spending a lot of time the past couple of weeks talking about it on this call.
And I'm just beginning to now start to look at some of the stuff that Derek was showing earlier, where you're actually manipulating that PowerShell environment now and extending because this is all vanilla. Like everything I showed is just, I unpacked the crate and followed the steps and then started building a workflow. I've done nothing to fancify anything, but I think in another open mic or two, I might have something much more interesting.
All right, we'll be coming back to you.
That's awesome. All right, we are at 4 minutes left. So lingering questions, we can answer them now.
I have something because Frank trolled me on this at the beginning and I wasn't able to engage. Did you guys see the Reddit thread? I actually responded to a Reddit post. I see them all, but I hold back and never respond. But apparently some folks are potentially upset that you have to use Roost to get value out of Roost. Anyone else see that thread or participate?
No, put a link to that. I got to see that.
Hold on.
Yeah, why would anybody think that they could get value out of anything that they don't put the value?
They don't.
Yeah, I mean, so I have to be the neutral. I'm trying to be neutral. I'm trying not to be inflammatory, on the thread or whatever. But I was going to say, start listing the products that you don't use today that you get value out of. But I think it was, and I don't know if I'm gonna completely mess up the customer's name that's on the call here, but the folks that work at Beazaloo, their response was the best and the most simple. It was like, sure, you could just install crates and get some value, or you could build your own stuff and get a ton of value.
Shout out, Logan, yes. Tell us, what is it? Beazaloo or Bezalu? Bezalau?
Yeah, can you help
What
us
is it,
pronounce
Logan?
it? Are you folks on?
Yeah, he's in the chat.
Look, it's
here.
here.
Yeah, it's
Bez-
Bezaloo.
Bezaloo.
All right, I'll pronounce it right from now on. But that's a great response. It was so accurate. Now, we're always going to work on making workflows easier to create. We're always going to be adding AI and generative AI stuff as we get it done. But at the end of the day, we're making things. And the more time you invest, the more time you save. I think someone else explained it really good in another post is you'll spend, maybe an hour automating something that saves you 10 minutes, but you potentially save that 10 minutes forever. Anyway, I think the thread turned out awesome, by the way. A bunch of Roost folks came in and talked about their experience, and I think it turned out great. So folks, so as you walk away, the lessons learned is you have to use every product at your, that you purchase to get value out of the product. All right, everybody, we're at the top of the hour. Thank you, folks, for who demoed. Thank you, folks who responded to the Reddit thread.
Reddit.
And wait, are we doing this next week? Is next week?
I'm off. George is off.
Is it a holiday or something? What is it?
It's Good Friday.
It's Good Friday.
I don't know. I mean, if you guys wanted to try and like impromptu call, I'll be having fish at a marina nearby.
Let every day is Good Friday. I can't even talk. I haven't
how
slept
can
much.
it be a Good Friday without the rock call?
Linda, was that you?
Yes, you weren't supposed to see that it was me. I'm supposed to, I lurk in the background and never put on my camera.
Do you want to host a call next week?
Oh, crap. Sure, why not?
Well,
community sourced call.
Yeah, somebody gets to pretend to be Aaron. Are you here, Aaron?
I don't know. I'm probably gonna be here too, but I'm not good at running the call. We'll let everyone know in the coop. We're running late. See you, folks. Have a good weekend.
Bye.
Toodles.
Meow.